Our first speaker is, apologies in advance, I'm going to do my best to pronounce your name, Camille. Probably pronounced that wrong. Please tell us how to pronounce it correctly. But Camille is the Animal Welfare Manager Behavior at the SPCA of Montreal. And we're going to start off this session by talking about a case related to post-adoption support that had a successful outcome. Welcome, Camille.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you great.
All right. So yeah, I'll be talking, just like you said, about a success story that we had with our post-adoption support program. So it'll be super simple. It was a tricky case, but you'll see it was just a happy ending that one of my colleagues, she specializes in cat behavior. So she's the one who took on that case. And I was very happy when she came up with this story for me to present for you guys today. So it's about a 6-year-old cat named Sativa. She was the classic case of an under-socialized cat that was very fearful in the shelter, but also adapting very slowly to new environments. So I'm sure you guys have dealt with similar cases like that, but it's not the easiest to get adopters interested. And also it's not the easiest for the adopters to remain patient and really take the time that it takes to get the cat comfortable in a new environment. So her case was a little bit special. She got surrendered back in September 2021. And within 2 weeks, she got adopted. But then the adopter brought her back because she was looking for a much more social cat. As you know, again, going back and forth for a fearful cat is very stressful. So we were really trying to find a good match after that. So we asked for a family without children and a calm family that was willing to deal with a stressed cat. So she left again a couple weeks later, and we were very happy about it. It seemed like a great match. But doing the post-adoption follow-ups, we do usually 24 hours and then 2 weeks. But obviously, the adopters can always call us back if there's any problems. But doing the follow-ups, we realized that things were really not going well. The cat was self-harming. She was super stressed. She was hiding. She didn't want anything to do with the adopter. So we had to act fast because obviously we didn't want her to come back to the shelter. So, but one thing that was a little bit tricky about this case is that for personal reason, the adopter didn't want to use medication to relieve the stress of Sativa. So especially in self-harming cases, I find it's a very useful tool. So we didn't have that option. So we did the 360 approach. What Millie Nice, my colleague who took on this case, she first of all looked at any medical causes that could have caused the Sativa to really do some self-harming. Once that was ruled out, it wasn't allergies, it wasn't parasites, it wasn't anything like that. She really focused on stress relief. She asked the adopter to provide a lot of hiding places. She asked them to use Feliway. What else did she do? Yeah, she focused a lot also on providing the cat with a very stable and predictable routine so that she could have some sense of control on her environment. After that, she focused on enrichment and stimulation. The adopter started giving her meals in interactive bowls. She used also positive reinforcement to teach her tricks to really reinforce the bond and the trust that they had together. She also asked the adopter to catify the house, so cat trees, again, a lot of hiding places, different textures, different things to observe, access to a window. And the last thing was finally improve the human-cat relationship. We had discovered that when Sativa was showing signs of aggression whenever the adopter was coming too close or not respecting her tolerance or her level of comfort, he would spray her with a bottle. So once we realized that, we were able to intervene and really explain to them, what effect that has on the confidence and the trust that you have with your animal, right? And he really got on board. He understood, and that's from then on, it was only positive associations that he was doing with the cat. And after a few weeks, it was a complete transformation. She stopped self-harming. She was comfortable. She was seeking attention, playing, running. We were really thrilled, and I'm honestly very proud of Melina for doing all of this, because honestly, I didn't know until I asked people to tell me of happy success stories about our post-adoption support. So she did all that on her own, and I was very, very happy with that. And that's it for Sativa. She's doing well, still with her adopter.
Wow, Camille, thanks for sharing. I really appreciate you sharing a cat case, because we end up talking a lot more about dogs than we do about cats during these calls. And so it sounded like a super involved case, and so nice. Those self-harm cases can be really difficult to manage, and so nice that you had a wonderful cat and a really dedicated person and team at your organization to help her turn around. Lots of interesting ideas there in terms of what you did in terms of helping this kitty. Just wanted to make sure everybody knows we will have some time at the end to ask questions, but if you do have a question that you know related to any of these speakers, please go ahead and type it into the chat while the person is speaking, so that we don't forget about that question. Thank you, Camille. Next, we are going to learn about the post-adoption follow-up program at the Humane Society of Western Montana with Tiff Shao. Tiff, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did. Thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome. So Tiff is the behavior manager at the Humane Society of Western Montana, located in Missoula, Montana. Tiff graduated from Duke University with a BA in biology and has been fascinated by the science of behavior ever since she adopted her first dog. At her shelter, Tiff oversees the behavior modification program for shelter pets, teaches private lessons and group classes, and manages the flow of behaviorally challenging pets through her shelter. Tiff, can you tell us about how the post-adoption support program at the Humane Society of Western Montana works?
Absolutely. And actually, I want to share the full circle of how we landed at our post-adoption support, because I thought, what perspective do I want to bring to this table? And I can talk about behavior helpline and private lessons, but I think most people know that those things are helpful. And I know a lot of shelters are trying to implement those programs. So my focus is going to be on how to hone the post-adoption support in a shelter. And I believe I'm allowed to share slides, right?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Okay, I will fly through these slides that I have. And what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about my shelter. And I think this is relevant because I believe that a shelter's behavior program and post-adoption support should be nested within the challenges that your specific shelter sees and the behavior challenges that your community faces. We know that shelters are always stressed for resources and time, so we can't possibly address all behavior problems, or we can't, we're going to spread ourselves thin. So one question I really wanted to answer was, where should we put our behavior resources? And then we got some answers. So very quickly, we're a limited admission shelter, and our annual intake is about 1,400 a year, with about 700 to 800 cats and about 400 to 500 dogs. And these are 2020 to 2021 numbers. And even when we can't take in a pet for capacity or behavior reasons, usually behavior reasons, we have safety net programs too. So we're all about holistic behavior approach here. Zooming through these slides. Oh, sorry, hold on. All right, I'm not even gonna full screen it because I can't figure out how to do that. So zooming through these slides, 2020, 23% of our population, dog population, was a dog with a behavior concern. And in 2021, around 18%. So behavior is completely pervasive in our shelter and in our region, based on conversations I've had with other shelter managers and behavior managers. And at any given time, most of our population is behavior pets because their length of stay is longer. We euthanized 5 dogs in 2020 for behavior reasons and 15 dogs in 2021. And I can talk about behavior for hours. There is a reason for that increase. Mostly changes in our adoptability guidelines from what we've learned from data in 2020 and previously, but I won't focus on that. Return rates, our general return rate for dogs is about 7%, but for dogs, behavior dogs that we send out, return rate is about 25% in both 2020 and 2021. So that is a huge increase, and that kind of helps us narrow in on the fact that there is a problem here. When we think a dog has a behavior concern at the shelter, we are seeing that the adopters are seeing those same concerns, which I know there is research that suggests that the behaviors we see in a shelter may not be what an adopter sees in the home, but we have 2 to 3 certified professional dog trainers on staff. So we are often correct about those behavior concerns. Length of stay, our average length of stay for all dogs is about 2 weeks. Average length of stay for a behavior dog is about a month. And we try to do very open adoptions. So this tells us that our concerns are correct. Our dogs that we label as dogs with behavior concerns are staying much longer. We know that that impacts the welfare of the dog and our staff and our volunteers, and causes resource use from the shelter. All these pie charts, the big takeaway is most of our intake is not owner surrender. Most of our intake, the blue, is transfer from other shelters, and orange is owner surrender for owner issues such as housing costs, landlord won't allow, etc. Yellow is stray, and gray is owner surrender behavior issues. So these dogs are not coming in as behavior dogs, but the bottom 2 pie charts are mostly gray. Those are dogs returned back to us. And when a dog is returned back to us, we're seeing that it's mostly because of a behavior issue. So we need to focus our post-adoption support there. This is length of stay per behavior issue. So the summary of this messy diagram is the top behaviors that we see of dogs that have the longest length of stay are fear, anxiety, such as separation anxiety, kennel stress, and reactivity. And when dogs are returned, mostly for behavior reasons, these are the top reasons for return: reactivity, destruction, impulsive rowdy behavior, kennel stress, and then fear is pretty low at 3. Again, I don't have time to go over all of this, but I'll do a big summary at the end. I put all of it together, and here is the big takeaway. Dogs that are fearful have the longest length of stay in our shelter, averaging around 55 days. And we note a lot of dogs with behavior concerns in our shelter. So in shelter, that is a big commitment as far as behavior resources. But when we send them out, they're mostly successful. We don't often see them back. The dogs that we see back are dogs with over-arousal challenges, such as dogs that are jumpy, rowdy, hard to handle, reactive, which means that our post-adoption support may need to focus on those behavior issues. So I'm going to stop my share screen here. This was designed for internal use, which is why it's so messy. And but that's just a quick fly through of how our shelter took numbers from our population and our community to really hone in on our behavior post-adoption services. So I'll talk about that really quickly. We do a lot of the things that shelters with robust behavior programs already do, such as doing complimentary private lessons, whether we are in their homes or doing a virtual Zoom consult or in a park with that dog. However we can support that adopter, we will. And we don't have a limit on how many we do. Our longest length of stay dog in 2021 was a dog named Tuesday. I believe her length of stay was around 170 days. And we did like 8 consults with them, but it was worth it. And she is absolutely thriving in her home. So we also do a free behavior helpline service. This is not only for adopters in our shelter. We often, very, very often get calls from adopters that adopt from other shelters in Montana and Idaho in our region. And we even get calls from people across the country sometimes. And we are happy to offer this free service because pet retention is such a huge, it's so important. We average about 300 to 400 behavior inquiries a year, whether that's through email or phone conversation. And we really, really want to help owners hone in on the problem and direct them to the correct behavior services. As far as our trainers, I mean, we are interested in a variety of things, including the fun training stuff like tricks, agility, nose work, etc. But we follow the research on what kind of training is most beneficial for pets in the shelter. And we focus on our continuing education on issues that cause pets to be returned to us. So where when we treat a pet in the shelter, we recognize that the best option is for that pet to go home. So we don't do just obedience for obedience sake, so to speak. We work on behaviors that increase adoptability. And for post-adoption support, because we see that the big issues, the big reasons for return are over-arousal behaviors, we triage and we prioritize private lesson inquiries that focus on that issue, and especially pets that come from us. So we do help everyone. This is reflective in our community training data. So well over 50% of our private lesson cases work on reactivity and over arousal. And I mean, we're continuing to collect numbers. We're continuing to just help these people and work on different behavior interventions, including we recently developed a metric system for treating and scoring fear and over arousal behaviors in our shelter too. But we really want to take what we do in the shelter and put it in the hands of adopters. So even when we do follow-up support and the behavior match consult, we try to have our behavior team connect with the adopter as soon as possible. Like I or our trainers or behavior team are the ones that do the match consult. We're the ones that say, congratulations on your adoption. My planner is in my hand. When would you like us to come to your home? And unfortunately, there is not a lot of follow through there. We're exploring that. But we want to make sure we make that connection and support them so that if they face a challenge in their home, they already know my face and my name, and that they can reach out through our free behavior helpline service or through our personal behavior emails to be supported as soon as possible. So I can talk for ages about behavior, but that's my big spiel. And my big takeaways are, one, really track behavior in your shelter, in your community, even if it's a simple spreadsheet, because that will help you make use of your very limited shelter resources and focus on what your community needs the most. And then two, make that connection with an adopter upon adoption so that they are more likely to reach out to you if they need behavior services after adoption. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Tiff. Wow. Really, really impressed and excited about everything that you are accomplishing. Gonna ask a couple of quick questions that we can answer quickly before we move on. First, how many people do you have on your behavior team?
We have, so our general staff is about 20. I'm gonna think about it. There's me, and then there's 2 certified dog trainers, but they're split between community and shelter. So they do private lessons, group classes, but also in-house BMOD and behavior match consult, things like that. And then we have 2 staff members that are part-time animal tech, care tech and adoption, and then part-time behavior. We have a lot of behavior in our shelter, but I will also share that a reason for this is we really encourage growth within our shelter. So if a staff member says, hey, I'm interested, we try to give them some behavior tasks and train them. I know it sounds like we have 3.5, but really, I would say it's the equivalent of 3 full-time.
Great, thank you. There's a lot of interest in your behavior scoring metrics and questions about whether you can share what you have. I know many of us, probably all of us, are really interested in that topic, because if we're not going to do a formal behavior assessment test, how are we going to be evaluating and supporting our animals to do the best that we can? I actually think this is probably going to be the topic of the job alike hopefully will be the top topic it's March now, in May. So maybe you can share more there, Tiff, if you're willing. I've also been speaking a little bit with Kim Iffert, who has, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Kim, who has a really interesting system that she's using to collect data as well. And if anybody else has something that you've been starting to work on that you'd like to share during that meeting, please type in the chat so we can know about that. But thank you so much, Tiff. We're going to move right along, and there's a couple questions for you in the chat. And so if you have time to answer those just by typing in, please feel free, but we'll do our best to get to them.
Will do.
Next, we'd like to welcome Aimee Sadler. Aimee Sadler, many of you have probably heard of Aimee's name. She's the founder and CEO of Dogs Playing for Life, and I'm very grateful that she is sharing her experience and knowledge with us today. With over 30 years of experience with multiple species and different venues, Aimee's an internationally recognized trainer and speaker, specializing in shelter programs that enhance quality of life and reduce canine euthanasia. Her Dogs Playing for Life programming is in over 300 shelters in the US and Canada. So welcome very much, Aimee. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here with everybody for sure.
Cool.
Tiff and Camille, I loved everything that you had to say, and that cat case was really heartwarming and perfect. Beautiful.
Yay. We love cats, but we never talk about them, right? So Aimee, you had a lot of really interesting ideas in terms of what you wanted to talk about today, which I really appreciated. And I'm just going to jump right in with questions, if that's okay.
Of course.
Okay, cool. First being that adoption is a really exciting time, but it can also be really stressful. Can you start by talking a little bit about the change in behavior we can often see once environment and or relationship changes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've all been in that position when we're so excited when an adopter chooses one of our pets, especially one that we feel like needs a little bit of extra support. And I know that I get this kind of sense of, oh, because sometimes we see people doing nothing that would be ideal in our mind, even the way they choose to engage with the animal or get close to them. And, you know, sometimes I've just thought, oh, how is this going to go when they go home? But, you know, we've all learned that as soon as you change environment, you change relationship, you can see a different picture of behavior anyway. So we definitely have let go of that sense of perfect control, that we know exactly what they need to do. And I love being surprised over and over again and being proven wrong when I anticipate that there might be some problems, and then they go home and they report, like, you know, I love when we send way back when we sent a dog home and said, we think that this dog has strong predatory drive towards cats, so please be mindful of that. And then they send a picture of the dog and the cat sleeping together, and just love to see those kinds of things and love to hear about that from people. But to me, I think one of the hardest things for us to anticipate might happen when the animals go home is territorial behavior. I think that's the one thing that does not get triggered, or we don't really see that true picture in the shelter as much. And so that's the one that has come up plenty of times. Like, we could have a very soft, fearful dog in the shelter environment, and then we do adoption follow-up, not because the dog is fearful, but because they're looking like a territorial Tasmanian devil, right? So that's one that I found has been very difficult for us to predict. But I mean, generally speaking, I think that if you're there and you're supporting families, even if they do things completely differently than what we prescribe, it is interesting what can unfold. And so we just really want them to have their own chance and just be there to catch them if they fall, so to speak. If things start to go wrong, then we're going to get in there and see that picture that they have. It could be very different from what we anticipate, just help them with whatever's coming up.
Thanks. And so do you have a kind of a routine and regular way that you follow up with your adopters, or do you primarily give them your contact information and form a relationship with them and they check in with you? What's your process?
So in the past, when I was doing this both at the Southampton shelter and then with Longmont Humane Society, and we do have Rhea here, so if she wants to chime in with anything with regards to Longmont and what's currently happening too, please do, Rhea, definitely. But we did not for a very long time, and I don't know if you are now, Rhea, we did not do just standardized follow-ups, even with some of the dogs that were maybe challenging behaviorally. In the adoption process, we would say we would like to follow up with this. And so there would be case by case, but we didn't for a long time do just prophylactic adoption follow-up calls to check in. We would just really say, we would assume no news is good news, but we were always available if they called us. Have you changed that policy at all, Rhea?
We have. We're doing prophylactic adoption follow-up calls on probably about 30% of our dogs that are placed at this point. It would be higher if we had the staff to do it.
So then that's something that you've established now. We didn't have, I think before, to be honest with you, if you have the resources to provide that, especially for dogs that you think are considered behavior cases, I think it's worth it. In those days, back then, we didn't feel like we had the bandwidth or the resources to be checking in with everyone. So that did drive that. We just didn't, when we were recording the statistics of our returns, we didn't feel that it didn't flag for us in our data that, oh, we better start doing systematic follow-up. It just came later because we felt like we had the bandwidth to do it, and why not provide it?
Thank you. And yeah, that sounds similar to how I used to do things. And I feel like you're going to miss some by having a more reactive approach. But I found that it was more rewarding doing it that way, because the people who contacted you were people who really wanted help and were willing to work with you and follow instructions. So thanks for your thoughts there.
Mhm.
Next, so with regard to preparing a dog with significant behavior challenges for adoptions, one of the things we've heard you talk about before is proofing and generalization. Can you explain what you mean when you say this and the steps you take to try to ensure generalization across a wide variety of environments and handlers?
Yeah, I think for us, you know, right away from the beginning, if we know that we are going to be handing these animals off to someone else, you know, we always talk about how important relationship is. And of course, we're establishing relationship every time we're interacting with the animals, but we're trying to think ahead of, I'm not the one that's going to be taking them home. How can I prepare them? Because they're going to establish a brand new relationship with somebody else, right? I'm sorry, ask me that question again. I just lost my train of thought when I said that. With regards to?
So relation to generalization and proofing. So what does that mean to you? And yeah, how do you?
Yeah, so for me, what was really important with generalization and proofing is trying to teach the dogs individual skills that they will do for anybody and in varying circumstances. It's just like if you're training for competition, right? You have to not only teach them in an ideal circumstance, but you want to be ready to get out on the competition field and you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. So we had that kind of mentality when we were trying to prepare the dogs, especially with behavior problems and going home. We know that the people probably aren't going to handle perfectly. We know that they're probably not going to follow our exact recommendations. So what skills can we teach the dogs that will become habits? For example, if we show up to a door, automatically we offer sit and look and wait for permission to walk out of a door so that we possibly prevent dogs from wanting to door dart. So we're starting those skills in the shelter, and then we're trying to take them everywhere we possibly can, have them practice that same routine in different environments and with as many different handlers as possible. And we would always try to layer more handlers as soon as possible so that the dog was actually adapting to different styles in handling. Even if our handlers were taught to do it kind of the same, we all know that we're all a little bit different sometimes. So we just felt that that was a better way to prepare them to maintain these behaviors in a different environment and with a different relationship.
Thank you. And I have a feeling you're not going to be able to answer this question because every dog is an individual, but is there an average? So when you're working on generalizing towards people, say for over arousal and jumpy mouthy type behavior, is there generally X number of people that you like to work through that your average dog that you see will generalize, or no?
Oh, no, you were right. I couldn't say that it's this many people, and once they can do it successfully for this many different people or in this many different scenarios, then we think that we've got it. I think that it's a lot more nuanced than that, but I think we were always approaching it like the more the merrier, always. And so to be fair too with us, especially with the behavior dogs, if they were responding really well with one particular handler, we were training our staff and volunteers right away. If any of us were saying, well, the dog is doing fine for me, but we were getting feedback that they weren't responding well for other people or in other situations, we actually got people trained up pretty quickly. As soon as the dog was normalized for them, then they would ask another one of their staff or volunteer teammates to say, hey, can you start working this dog because I feel like they're responding too much because of my relationship with them.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, can you tell us a little bit about your adopter follow-up sessions, what your focus is, and how you work to support people once they've taken a pet home?
So interestingly, and this was the case for me when I was doing private training, pre-shelter training, is one of the routines that we teach the dogs. We started in the shelter, and then we definitely focus on it in adoption follow-up in the home, are the home door routines. In other words, when company comes over, the dog learns that the doorbell or the knock is the environmental cue. Environmental cues are huge too for generalization. And that's going to signal that I go to my place, whatever that designated place is, and I'm going to stay in that position. Just like in my kennel routines, I'm going to stay in that position until the guests come in and until mom or dad release me to come visit with everybody. That is such a critical skill. And I would say, I mean, I'm making this up, like 90% of my private clients would have me come for a variety of behavior problems. And when we got that routine down, just the process of teaching the people how to work their dogs through the impulse control that requires, and knowing how to reinforce those behaviors, and the good timing and marking correctly, and when to go back and reward an approximation, all of those things wrapped up. When I got the families practicing that well, it was amazing how that then carried over to so many other things that they were struggling with, because they had those core skills. They had the skills and the dog had the skill. And remember, when we teach kennel routines in the shelter environment, that is actually the precursor to a home door routine in a home. And the critical thing in the home, there's a couple of things with that, is that going into the home and making sure that we can see their environment and what the proper setup is really critical. So sending people into the home, especially with behavior cases where there's any kind of risk, especially of the dogs being returned, we were doing that. I mean, back in 2000 is when I started that, is that I would send somebody into the home to see what we could do to help you here in your environment.
Thanks, Aimee. I think it's amazing and wonderful when you learn and use over and over again those simple things, like people saying, why in the heck, I have a dog with this problem, why are you teaching place? But things like that have such a strong role in changing how someone's able to live with a dog and manage a dog. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
Next is talking a little bit about when things don't work out, because sometimes they don't. And especially when dealing with a more challenging population like you are, it's not always going to be successful. Do you have any tips or suggestions related to how you decide that a home isn't a good fit, and how you talk adopters through that?
We did feel like it was as much our responsibility when we went into adoption follow-up sessions to be prepared. Sometimes we went with the surrender form with us, ready, because it sounded concerning enough that we wanted to be able to support the family that it's okay, you haven't done anything wrong, this just isn't the right match. And so I think that that's the biggest thing, is not treating the families as if they had made a mistake, that, hey, we're all in this together. None of us know until you come and you try. You fell in love with this dog for a reason, but I think for your lifestyle and what's going on for this dog, I think that this is not in the best interest of any of us. And we have so much more now. You guys know this spiel. We know so much more now that you've had them in your home. We can find them a better fit, and just not making them feel like they've failed. I think that's the most important part. And we do feel like that's as much of our role. Like we don't want to force a square peg into a round hole, right? So just being prepared to support people with that. And, with regards to return adoptions and working with dogs with more advanced, you guys have probably heard me say this. Once we were deciding that we were going to place dogs that were outside of the industry standard adoptable box, right? And we've been doing that for a long time. And of course, that threshold keeps changing. It is really critical, and it's our responsibility to be measuring that. So, because we don't want to be placing dogs with a community that is too difficult, or that, bad things can happen, but of course we want to be responsible for that not happening. So with regards to measuring, if you are going to be doing that and you are going to be implementing an adoption follow-up program, it's really important that you think about the returns that are coming back in. If you're doing behavior dogs, your returned adoptions, your increase in life saving should go up, but your returned adoptions should not proportionally go with it. Ideally, you want to keep that where it is, or even get better and improve upon your returned adoptions. And definitely focusing on, was this dog returned for the pertinent behavior? That's what we call it. So in other words, if I thought we had resolved an on-leash reactive dog, is the dog being returned because of on-leash reactivity, or are they being returned because they were peeing on the couch, right? So that's a really important distinct difference, because it's more important that your pertinent adoption and your pertinent returns, because that's where you can keep refining the work that you're doing. And is the training that we're installing, or the adoption follow-up support that we're providing, is it actually working, or did we think we fixed it and we didn't? Because we all know that sometimes they get returned for behavior, but in general, it might not have anything to do with anything we could have controlled for or prepared for.
Thanks. And I really appreciate the comment on data, especially because we did a survey at Maddie's Fund recently looking at, and one of the questions was related to whether organizations track behavior data related to follow-up. and I don't have the numbers right in front of me right now, but it was something like 70% of us do not track data after adoption. And I understand why we're all so busy. It's really difficult. But if we want to improve the work that we're doing and ensure that we're placing safe animals in homes, it's critical that we do that. And I really think this whole discussion in terms of ways to do it and ways to do it as simply as possible is probably another great topic for another meeting. So thanks for sharing that, Aimee.
Well, to that point, Rhea, Rhea said that she'd be prepared to share the returned adoption stats quickly from Longmont, which will be to your point about them.
Awesome. Thank you, Rhea.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me butt in here a little bit, even though I wasn't scheduled to share anything. So for the year that just ended, 2021, our returned adoption rate overall was almost 13%. It was a little below. Our returned adoptions for behavior reasons, across the board behavior reasons, that was 7%. For pertinent behaviors, what Aimee was just talking about, that was 1.7%. So our returned adoption rate for pertinent behaviors was 1.7% in 2021. And as Aimee mentioned, we are kind of dealing with that out of the box end game group of behavior inconsistencies and incompatibilities. So
there you go.
So we're placing some tricky dogs, and our community is stepping up and really hanging on to those dogs and managing them well. The other thing that I wanted to note is that of the animals that were returned, 37% did receive some form of adoption follow-up, whether that was in-person, one-on-one training, a group class, a phone call, an email conversation, but we did do some form of adoption follow-up with 37% of those returned dogs. So people were reaching out for help before returning dogs.
Thank you so much, Rhea. That's really detailed data, and I really appreciate it. And the fact that your pertinent returns are so low sounds like it's a testament that you're doing the right work. It's just figuring out, how do we solve? We didn't know this was there and to begin with. That's the frustrating one that we spent some time talking about over the past 2 days. Thank you, Rhea and Aimee, so much. I feel like with each of you, we could spend a whole hour talking about things, but we're going to move on to our last segment here. Next, we are going to be learning about GoodPup, an app to support adopters in ways that your shelter might not be able to, or that can supplement your follow-up efforts. Allie Mayer is the manager of the GoodPup Rescue Program. She's a GoodPup trainer and the former foster coordinator and adoption supervisor at the Louisiana SPCA. She has over 10 years of experience in the animal sheltering field. We're going to be hearing from Allie first, and then we're going to be hearing from Kait Hembree, hopefully if we have time at the end. Allie, thanks for joining us, and tell us about GoodPup.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. 1 second. Okay. There we go. Did that work? Can everyone see and hear?
Yes, that looks great.
Okay, perfect. So yes, thank you so much, Sheila. I just wanted to start off by thanking you and HASS and Maddie's Fund for having us here today. We're really excited to talk with you. I'm Allie Mayer. I'm the manager of rescue partnerships at GoodPup, and I'm joined today by Kait Hembree, who's the head of training at GoodPup. And I'm going to be turning it over to her to do an introduction of herself later in the presentation, and she's also going to be talking about her specialty, VTS behavior, as well as talking about the credentials of our trainers here at GoodPup. Just a quick background on myself is that in addition to being the manager of rescue partnerships, I am also a certified dog trainer, and I'm one of the trainers here on the team at GoodPup. And prior to coming to this company, I worked in animal shelters myself, and most recently as the adoption supervisor. at the Louisiana SPCA here in New Orleans, which is where I am calling from today. So working as an adoption supervisor, I know how important post-adoption support is, how hard it can be for staff to find the time to be able to do that. And it was always something that I was thinking a lot about when I was working in shelters myself. And so I'm really excited that we now have this option. GoodPup is a positive reinforcement dog training company that works with shelters, partners with shelters to provide that post-adoption support system. So I'm really proud of the program that we have and really excited to share it with you today. So GoodPup is already working and partnering with about 400 shelters and rescues all around the US and Canada. So we have a program that already exists and is running smoothly with a wide variety of shelters and rescue groups of all different sizes. So our program is really perfect for shelters that want to be able to provide that post-adoption behavior support that we all know is so critical, but may not have the bandwidth to be able to build a program from the ground up at this point in time. This is going to be an option for you guys. You can partner with us. It is free to partner and easy to do so. And we can help you do that post-adoption support with our team of really well-qualified trainers. So let me tell you a little bit about how GoodPup works for those of you who might not be familiar with it yet. GoodPup is a positive reinforcement dog training company that's been around for about 4 years, and our shelter and rescue partnership program has been around for about 2 years now. GoodPup was created as a way to make professional positive reinforcement dog training more accessible to more people, to make it more convenient and affordable for people. So the way that it works is when somebody signs up for the GoodPup training program, like one of your adopters signs up for training, they get matched with a trainer like myself, and they meet with their trainer once a week, one-on-one, over a video call. So similar to a Zoom call or a FaceTime call, this is what it looks like down here. They meet with their trainer and they work through a customized training plan that is tailored to the needs of that dog and that adopter. And then in addition to meeting with their trainer once a week, they also have access to all of these other features in the app that help support them and help them stay connected with their trainer and help them feel like they can get that help that they need. One that I'll just highlight quickly is the unlimited chat support. So that is like text messaging, and you can see an image of it on your screen there. So anytime the adopter has any questions at all, they can immediately pull out their phone and send a message to their trainer and get prompt feedback. So that is, perfect for these new adopters who are just getting a dog settled into their home for the first time and have a lot of questions. We are here, we are there to help them through that process. A couple other things that are really nice about this platform is that we can offer training sessions on the adopter's schedule anytime from 9 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. Those times are Eastern time zone. And we can offer same-day appointments. So somebody could be in your adoption center, adopting a dog. They can download the app, start messaging with a trainer immediately, and have a session set up with a trainer for that very afternoon when they get home. So we can really get them off on the right foot and get this adoption set up for success. And we do work with any training programs that you already have at your organization. So, if you do already have behavior programs, that is great. This can be an additional option, something that people could start right away, perhaps while they're waiting for their appointment with your behavior staff member, and just to give people more options so that everyone can find a training program that's going to fit their needs. So the way that we work with shelters is if you sign up to partner with us, we send you brochures that look like this up on your screen. We send you printed ones or digital ones or both, whatever works best with your adoption format. You give these to your adopters and they scan a QR code or they go to a special link to sign up for the training. And this is how we know which adopters come from which organization. And we start off everyone with a free week of training. So all of your adopters can do this for 1 week for free so that we can help them with that initial transition period to the home. After that, if they continue, they get a lifetime discount on the training. So rather than paying $29 a week for this training program, for them, it would be about $26 a week. And your shelter earns a donation for each adopter that comes to us and stays past the free trial. GoodPup sends back a $40 donation to your organization. So it's a really great way to give people an option for dog training support, post-adoption support, and also earn back some donations into your organization. And then one other thing that I want to mention quickly before I hand it over to Kait is that we have something called scholarships, GoodPup scholarships. These are like gift certificates that organizations or donors or private individuals can purchase and be able to prepay for a certain number of weeks of training and then be able to give that to a adopter or a foster. So we actually did a tracking study with one of our partners, Care St. Louis, because we were interested to find out if GoodPup training did have an effect on post-adoption success. And so we, for a certain period of time, we partnered with RARF and Care St. Louis, and we gave a GoodPup scholarship for 4 weeks of GoodPup training to every dog that was adopted during a certain period of time, and we tracked their outcomes. And what we found was that adopters that did participate in GoodPup training shortly after bringing their new dog home did have a much higher rate of success with keeping that dog in their home. So the return rate for adopters who used GoodPup was about 3%, and the return rate for adopters who did not use GoodPup was about 13.5%. So that was really interesting information to gather, and we are in the process of running some follow-up studies with some of our other partners as well to continue to gather this type of information. And I do also just want to mention that all of the GoodPup programs can be used in your other programs as well. So of course, today we're talking about post-adoption support, but I do just want to also mention that we do also help shelters support their foster programs and their surrender prevention programs as well. All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Kait.
Thank you, and I'm working on a response to you, Tiff, so bear with me. Thank you again, thank you, Allie. Thank you guys for having us. I'll see how fast I can do this very busy slide. But I'm Kait Hembree, head of training here at GoodPup. I've been with them for about 4 years. I just want to tell you briefly about our programs and our training team. And then Dr. Seekinson asked me to also talk about the BTS behavior, which I'll start with quickly because that is really what has impacted our programs and our training team. So for those of you who don't know, VTS Behavior is a veterinary technician that has gained extensive knowledge and experience in the field of veterinary behavioral medicine. So just like human nurses, veterinary nurses can also specialize. I think there's up to 20 now recognized by NAVTA, or the National Association of Veterinary Technicians. There's oncology, nutrition, emergency critical care, and behavior is one of those. So I'm actually a member of the Academy of Veterinary Behavior Technicians. And in order to receive that specialty, we actually have to fulfill a variety of requirements to even sit for the exam. So you guys can see the list of requirements listed on the slide. It starts with a skills assessment, which is about 4 pages long. We have to come up with clinical case log, 50 cases where we've worked with veterinarian, 4,000 hours of work experience that all has to be logged, 40 hours continuing education, 5 case reports or studies, a peer-reviewed article that's been published, and of course, a ton of hours of self-study time. So for the average candidate, just to fulfill the requirements that actually allows them to sit for the exam, it takes about 5 years. For myself, I think it took about 4.5. And then after the exam, we do actually are recognized with that certificate of specialty in the field. We are required every 5 years to continue to maintain that knowledge base, specifically in animal behavior grounded in science, with 60 hours of continuing education. So given that history and where my career has taken me, everything we've done at GoodPup and everything that I've helped put together is 100% positive reinforcement based training methods. We do have 2 programs that we offer here. We have a 101 path and a 201 program. Our 101 path is basic foundation skills for every dog as far as in the home and what they do outside of the home. 201 is more advanced manners. We actually have an advanced manners path. We have a tricks path. We hope to make even more paths. We also have a CGC path. We partner with AKC to help prepare dogs for the Canine Good Citizenship Test. But the really unique thing about our programs here at GoodPup is that they are all fully customizable. So whether we get an 8-week-old puppy, 8-month or 8-year-old dog, we can cater our program to fit what that user's goals are and what they need for their dog. Then additionally, with our training team, of course, I want to have trainers that are positive reinforcement based with their history. So we do pull from veterinary technicians, certified, registered, licensed, and we do require the technicians to have had at least 2 years of hands-on training experience in a positive reinforcement environment. For our trainers, we pull from positive reinforcement based programs. We have a variety. Karen Pryor trainers on the phone, Victoria Stillwell. We have a lot of CPDT knowledge assess trainers on the phone, a couple of Jean Donaldson Academy graduates, and recently now we've got several of the certified separation anxiety trainers as well. So very excited to have them. Additionally, once we have those trainers join us, they go through 40 hours of a self-paced program with GoodPup that's RACE approved for 16 continuing education hours. Join our apprentice program where they get individualized coaching, specifically a lot of virtual coaching. How do you virtually train on the phones? And then from there, join our trainer pool. We also want to see our trainers advance and evolve with their skills as well. So we do have a behavior team at GoodPup. Behavior team addresses more advanced cases with dogs coming in. So we'll write entire behavior modification plans for them. But then we also coach and educate our trainers on how to implement those plans. And that team's made up of several of our elite trainers. We have a certified dog behavior consultant from IABC. We have a certified control and leash instructor from the Leslie Devon Leash Reactivity. That's where one of our certified separation anxiety trainers is. So again, a variety of trainers in that group too, to hopefully offer that information for not just our dogs to find success, but also our trainers. So anyways, I hope I did that. I know we're short on time, a lot of information. So thank you guys for having us. There's a couple questions I'll enter in chat and we are available by email, but I'll turn it back to Allie.
Thank you so much, Kait. And that about wraps it up for me as well. Up here on the screen, we've got our website that you can check out. We've got our email addresses, so please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or if you'd like to have a conversation about how GoodPup can work with your shelter or rescue group. And on our website, you can check out all of the programs that we talked about today, the affiliate program, that's the free program where we send you the brochures, the scholarship program that is like the gift certificates that you can purchase for certain special cases, and then webinars. We have free monthly webinars on topics that are requested by our shelter and rescue partners. And so you can check out some past recordings of those as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Allie and Ria. Exciting to hear about how the GoodPup program is growing over time and how you're reaching so many shelters. That's wonderful. I wanted Kait to talk about VTS behavior today because I'm guessing some of you frequently get questions about, I want to advance my knowledge with regard to behavior. What should I do and how should I do it? So I'd like to introduce into these monthly meetings people talking about different certifications, different training courses, things like that, so we can all learn about what is out there. We have gone over time, so much exciting and interesting stuff, and a lot of really good conversation in the chat today. I don't think we're going to have time to get to any questions, but if anybody has a question that you want to have answered and you can stay a little bit later, I don't know if our speakers can stay on a little bit later to answer those questions. But if you can't stay, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you again in a month. If you can stay, we'll answer a couple questions. Thank you, everyone. The first question I wanted to get asked quickly, hopefully, is from Camille. Allie and Kait, Camille's asking whether you offer training sessions and support in French, and does the adopter provide you with the dog's file from the shelter?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, we do not have any French-speaking trainers at the moment, I don't believe. We do generally have a couple of Spanish-speaking trainers, and we do have a trainer who can do American Sign Language. I don't believe we have a French-speaking trainer at the moment. Kait, do you know?
We don't right now. We do have 3 trainers out of Canada. One of them speaks a very small amount, but not to the point that I think they'd be to do well with interpretation. But we do work very hard to help people that do come in. We actually are looking at another Spanish speaking trainer right now. Hopefully she'll join our ranks. But that tends to be the bigger area with languages. And hopefully one day we'll have even more.
Yeah. And then in terms of getting the behavior record from the shelter, our trainers do take a thorough history with the owner when they have their first session. And we do also encourage shelters to communicate back and forth with us. So if your shelter does have a special case dog that's getting adopted and you know is signing up for GoodPup, you have the ability to send the records directly to us, and we put that into the dog's file that the trainers will have access to.
And if we do have some of the histories come in with maybe some more specific behavioral concerns, I will actually personally try to match them to trainers who've already worked with dogs with similar concerns on the phone.
Thank you. I think we got to most of the questions, but we may have missed a couple. I apologize. There's so much wonderful chat going on. I missed some of it. Does anybody else have a question for any of our speakers right now? If so, please unmute yourself and ask, or you can type in the chat. All right. Well, I think that is it then. Thank you so much to our speakers today. Lots of really, really good information, and appreciate you sharing your days with us. And thanks to everybody who joined us. We'll see you all next month where we continue talking about supporting people. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Sheila.